Dear Uncle Murray, I know you are all very anxious to get some first-hand, definite news from us. It is very hard to write about it all. You know that the worst has happened to us. But when we see the suffering and agony of people, and how one person after another has been cut up beyond recognition, lived a while and then died, why, we have a very great deal to be thankful for. Daddy, while he was killed and we simply do not know where to turn, is free from all this pain and suffering.
Ethel Bond was the younger of two sisters. She and her sister Bertha, known as Bid, were in their home on K Street at the time of the explosion. It was a day that began as any other for the two young women.
The morning of the disaster, Bid was late getting up, and Daddy and I had our breakfast and family prayer. Daddy picked up our sugar tin from the pantry floor and went to the mill to fill it.
That was the last time Ethel saw her father alive.
I went to the front door to get the morning paper and had merely reached the door when I was knocked down, stunned. Everywhere it was pitch black, and coming as it did out of the clear, beautiful morning, I immediately thought the magazine in Wellington had blown up. I went as fast as I could to Daddy. You see, I knew where he went, and I crawled over things and got to the ruins. When I looked down, his body was right at my feet and everything was quiet. Oh, I can't tell you how I felt. It was all so dreadful, and the moans and cries that rent the air will ring in my ears for ages.
Ethel Bond was one of tens of thousands of people who survived the explosion in Halifax Harbour. When the Norwegian Imo collided with the French Mont-Blanc, the resulting blast left the city in ruins. In the days and weeks that followed, letters written to friends and family were an essential means of communicating grief and emotion. Ethel's letter, a piece of evidence from the past, is a primary source created by a person who experienced the Halifax explosion firsthand. It can help us understand more about the event through the perspective of a survivor. We can't simply imagine another person's perspective. We need to analyze evidence to draw conclusions. What can this letter reveal about Ethel Bond's thoughts, feelings, values, and experiences at the time of the explosion? There are 5 key steps to analyzing primary sources. The 5 W's: context, exploring, reaching conclusions, and finding proof. First, consider the 5 W's. Who wrote the letter, and to whom is it written? When and where was it written? What details are communicated? Why was it written? 10 days after the disaster, Ethel wrote her uncle to inform him of the personal losses to their family and community. She describes the events leading up to and following the explosion.
We joined the crowds of people, cut and bleeding terribly, and as we went, we put our coats on those who needed clothing. The sights I saw were terrible. Really, Daddy was far better off than so many. Had I been killed when I was knocked down, I'd never have suffered any at all. The suffering came when I came back to consciousness and realized everything.
To understand how this letter fits into the larger historical picture, we need to consider the context in which it was written. Ethel's father, Alexander Bond, was one of nearly 2,000 people who lost their lives in the explosion. Thousands more were wounded and made homeless by the destruction. Believing that a second explosion would follow, soldiers had forced the public away from the barracks.
Then came frantic cries and warnings to run west to the woods as fast as we could, as the magazine in the barracks would blow up in any minute. Soldiers stopped us everywhere and ordered us to stop and get in the open.
Many more people, unable to move as a result of their wounds, were left behind.
Imagine the feelings of those lying on doors for stretchers and some just lying on the ground. But I'm not going to harrow up your feelings anymore.
The Bonds lived in Richmond, among the most devastated areas in the city. Being so near to the harbor, the pressure from the blast destroyed many of the buildings, and fires, sparked by wood-burning ovens, finished many of them off. The Bonds, like many others who lost their homes, took shelter with nearby friends and family. Relief efforts were mobilized quickly, with immediate support from neighboring communities in Canada and the United States, but these efforts were soon hampered by a blizzard that hit the city the day following the blast. Explore the details of the letter. The language used in letters can offer many clues about a person's perspective and reveal their thoughts, feelings, and values.
Daddy was far better off than so many. He was ready to die. His faith in God was always an example to us, and when we know he went to heaven without feeling pain or knowing the agonies that some people have known, we feel comforted.
As you analyze a letter within its wider context, develop a conclusion based on your observations. What does this evidence suggest about Ethel Bond's thoughts, feelings, and values as a survivor of the Halifax explosion? What has this letter taught you about one person's perspective on the disaster? It may not be possible to fully understand another person's perspective, in the past or in the present, but analyzing primary sources is an excellent way to better understand historical perspectives. One primary source only provides us with a small slice of the past. To develop a deeper understanding of the experiences of those who died in or survived the Halifax explosion, we must consider a number of perspectives. Compare Ethel Bond's letter to other primary sources. How was her perspective on the Halifax explosion similar and different from other survivors? Countless memories, stories, and traces from the past are lost. It is the primary sources that remain which help shape our understanding of history. We can only work with evidence that survives. As a result, there are many voices that remain silent. For a historian, this means there is rarely a complete picture of the past. More often, we are given a window to look through, a glimpse into the bigger picture of history.